Okay, so picture this. You step outside. Maybe it's that first really nice day after weeks of gray, you know, or just a normal afternoon. And the sun hits your skin. You take a deeper breath. And you just feel that simple kind of ease, maybe even like joy washing over you.
Yeah, that feeling is so familiar.
Or maybe you walk into a park, somewhere quiet, or even just, look at the leaves on a tree outside your window for a second, and you just feel calmer.
Right. A sense of peace settles in.
It feels so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Almost too simple. Like happiness could just be sunshine on your face or being around trees. But is that really it? Is it that straightforward?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Or is there something, I don't know, deeper going on, something really fundamental about how we connect with the world around us?
That immediate feeling, that intuitive lift you get from nature and warmth, it's absolutely real. And the stuff we've been digging into for this exploration really shines a light on it. It shows us the science, yeah, but also the human stories behind it. And importantly, how it all connects to the much bigger, much more complex picture of, human well-being.
Exactly. We pulled together some really fascinating insights here. We're looking at, well, everything from really powerful personal stories about recovery where nature was absolutely central.
Really moving stuff.
All the way to, serious scientific reviews looking at these deep concepts like biophilia, this idea that we have this innate built-in need for nature.
Yeah, E.O. Wilson's idea.
And also the environmental approach in psychology, which basically looks at how our surroundings, literally where we are, shapes who we are, how we feel.
It fundamentally shapes us.
And then we also explore what the research actually says makes people happy, going way beyond just, whether it's sunny or not.
It's a really rich mix of sources, and I think it helps us understand these profound ways our environment interacts with us, ways we often overlook, maybe. The natural world, the buildings we're in, even just the weather. It's not just background noise. It's an active participant in how we feel in our well-being.
So our mission here for this deep dive is to really unpack all of that, to get past that simple feeling, that nice warmth, and actually understand the science underneath it and hear those compelling personal stories.
Right. What's really going on?
Yeah. We want to pull out the surprising insights, figure out what they tell us about why the world outside our windows matters so much, and, maybe most importantly, see what we can all take away from this.
Practical stuff.
Exactly. How can we use this to cultivate a bit more well-being in our own lives, no matter where we live or what the weather's doing? So let's unpack it.
Absolutely. And let's start right there with that feeling you mentioned first, that immediate, almost undeniable sense of relief, maybe, or energy.
Yeah, like when spring finally hits after a long winter.
Precisely, that feeling. Or just the peaceful, energizing sensation of sunlight on your skin. Or even, that simple, almost primal joy of feeling warm air when you can finally ditch the heavy coat.
Bare skin in the air, yeah.
These aren't just abstract thoughts, are they? They're powerful physical experiences, and they resonate with so many people.
They really do. I mean, the idea that warmer places and sunshine equal happiness feels almost universal, doesn't it?
It does.
It's baked into our culture, our dreams even. Sunny vacations, retiring somewhere warm. There's this real pull towards warmth and light.
And the research actually confirms that intuitive link, that feeling of relief after winter, that little energy boost from sunlight, the simple pleasure of warm air. These are consistently described as real, tangible experiences that genuinely lift our spirits.
So it's not just us imagining it.
Not at all. It's not just some cultural idea we've absorbed. It's something deeply felt, physically experienced.
And what's really exciting, I think, is that science is starting to catch up. It's starting to explain why we feel that way. It's not just in our heads, is it?
No, definitely not. There are real chemical reactions, physiological things happening in our bodies when we're exposed to sunlight, and, importantly, moderate warmth.
Okay, so what's going on chemically?
Well, one of the best-known connections is vitamin D. When sunlight hits our skin, our bodies naturally produce more vitamin D.
Right, we hear about that for bones and things.
Exactly. But it's way more than just bones. Vitamin D plays a really significant role in regulating our mood. It's strongly linked to reducing the risk of seasonal affective disorder, SAD.
The winter blues.
That's the one. That low mood that can creep in during the darker, shorter winter days. Getting sunlight is quite literally a biological tool our bodies use to fight that off.
Okay, so vitamin D is one big piece. What else?
Well, there's also the impact on serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter, a brain chemical that's often associated with feelings of well-being, positive mood.
A feel-good chemical.
Sort of, yeah. And sunlight exposure has been shown to actually increase serotonin levels in the brain. This boost then triggers a whole cascade of positive effects.
Like what?
Well, it doesn't just lift your mood. It can also help improve your focus, sharpen your memory, enhance your overall cognitive function, how well you think, and even give your creativity a little nudge.
Wow. So it's like sunshine is fuel for the brain, almost, helping it work better and feel better.
That's a great way to put it. It really is like flipping a positive switch in our neurochemistry. And what's really compelling, especially for, busy modern lives,
Yeah.
is that you don't need to bake in the sun for hours to get these benefits. Studies have found that surprisingly short amounts of exposure can make a real difference.
How short are we talking?
Well, there was one notable study, I think it was from the University of Michigan, that showed just 30 minutes spent outdoors in sunny, pleasant weather was enough to produce measurable mood-boosting effects.
30 minutes. That's nothing.
Right. It's incredibly accessible.
Many of us spend that long scrolling on our phones during a break or on a commute. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Integrating even short bursts of sunlight into your day could have a concrete impact.
Absolutely. Rethink that lunch break, maybe, or how you get to work.
Definitely.
But while moderate warmth and sun are clearly beneficial, it's really important to get the nuance here, because the research also points out that more isn't always better.
Okay.
Extreme heat, for instance. We're talking temperatures regularly getting up over, say, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius. That can actually have significantly negative effects on well-being.
Right. That feels a bit counterintuitive if we just think warm equals happy. We picture beaches and relaxation.
It does feel that way, but the data is pretty clear. High heat can actually make symptoms worse for people already dealing with mental health conditions like anxiety or depression, even schizophrenia. Yes, and tragically, studies show it can even increase mortality rates among people with these conditions during heat waves. So while that kind of comfortable mid-range temperature, maybe 50 to 70 Fahrenheit, sort of 10 to 21 Celsius.
The pleasant zone.
Exactly. That seems to be the sweet spot for boosting mood and general comfort. But excessive heat becomes a physiological stressor. It can actively harm mental well-being. It's a good reminder that it's about the right kind of interaction with the environment, not just any extreme.
Okay, that's a really important distinction. So the science gives us these physiological reasons why moderate warmth and sun lift our mood, sharpen our minds. But the sources we looked at also take us beyond just the weather, don't they? Into the power of nature itself, even when things feel really, really tough.
Yes, and this is where Trevor's story, which comes from the Rethink Mental Health organization, becomes just incredibly moving, and it perfectly illustrates this potential for nature to heal.
Tell us about Trevor.
Trevor had gone through 2 major mental breakdowns. He was left in a really dark place, struggling with severe anxiety, paranoia.
Wow.
To the point where he actually described being terrified to even leave his house, to go outdoors at all.
That sounds incredibly isolating, just completely debilitating. And especially tough if he loved nature before.
Exactly. The sources mention he did have a love for nature and photography, so yes, particularly painful. And his path back, well, it wasn't quick or easy. But his doctor, who knew about Trevor's past interest in nature and photography, made this very specific, almost surprisingly simple suggestion. And it became a turning point for him.
What was it?
Just to set a timer for 5 minutes, go into a garden, any nearby green space, take some photos, and then crucially, journal about what he saw and how he felt during those 5 minutes.
5 minutes outdoors. That was the start.
Just 5 minutes. It really highlights how accessible that first step can be, doesn't it? It wasn't about some huge wilderness trek. It was a small, manageable interaction.
Manageable is key when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And Trevor himself explained what made it work for him in that moment. He said using the camera lens gave him headspace. Yeah. By focusing his attention through the lens onto the details, a leaf, a flower, the texture of tree bark, it gave his mind something concrete, something external to concentrate on.
Instead of the internal chaos.
Precisely. It actively pushed those overwhelming, intrusive worries, the anxiety, the paranoia, it pushed them into the background, even just for those few minutes.
Like a mental break. A necessary distraction, almost.
A crucial one. And the journaling part was also vital. He mentioned that when you're really in the depths of it, it often feels like you're making zero progress. Day after day feels the same.
Yeah, that feeling of being stuck.
Right. But by writing down his observations and feelings each day, even just brief notes, he could look back over weeks or months and actually see the gradual improvement. undeniably.
Ah, tangible evidence.
Exactly. That visible proof of healing is so important for keeping hope alive, for recognizing recovery when it's happening slowly, step by step.
So what was the outcome for Trevor, following this simple, consistent practice?
Well, the outcome was incredible. He was eventually able to come off his medication entirely. He felt significantly stronger, more resilient, and he was so profoundly affected by nature's role in his recovery that he felt this real need to share his story widely. His famous quote is just, "Nature heals."
Wow.
Wow.
That's a powerful testament.
Truly inspiring. And what's important is that Trevor's incredible personal experience isn't just an anecdote. It's strongly backed up by broader scientific evidence.
Okay, what does the wider research show?
Well, numerous studies consistently show that spending time in green spaces, parks, forests, gardens is associated with reduced stress levels. Your cortisol levels might drop, heart rate slows down.
Okay, physiological stress reduction.
Yes. And also an increase in what psychologists call positive affect. That's basically your capacity to experience positive emotions, feel good, feel optimistic.
So it makes you feel better emotionally, too.
Definitely. And on top of that, significant improvements in cognitive functioning. Things like better concentration, improved attention span, clearer thinking. Nature seems to restore our mental resources.
It's really telling that even during the huge collective stress of the COVID-19 pandemic,
Yeah, that was a real test case.
healthcare professionals, public health organizations, they were specifically recommending access to green spaces, parks, nature reserves. It wasn't just seen as recreation, it was framed as a vital tool for supporting both mental and physical health during a crisis.
It absolutely was. It underscored just how fundamental this need for nature might be, how powerful it can be as a buffer against stress, and as a way to restore those mental resources we deplete just getting through the day.
So nature helps us cope, helps us recharge.
Exactly. And when you take that simple exposure to the natural world and you combine it with intentional practices like mindfulness, the benefits seem to become even more profound.
Okay, let's talk about mindfulness. Some of the material defined it as basically paying attention to the present moment, but without judging it.
Yeah, that's a good summary. It's about being fully present with your experience, whatever it is, and cultivating qualities like empathy, compassion, kindness, both towards yourself and towards others. It's a practice of conscious awareness.
Right. So how does that connect with being in nature?
Well, when you bring that focused, non-judgmental awareness into a natural setting, let's say you really pay attention to the sound of leaves rustling, or the warmth of the sun on your arm, the feeling of the ground under your feet, maybe the smell of rain or pine trees.
Engaging all the senses.
Exactly. The environment itself seems to enhance the practice. Nature provides this rich, multi-sensory tapestry that can make it easier to anchor yourself in the present moment. It helps quiet that internal chatter, that monkey mind, and just allows you to notice.
So nature isn't just a nice backdrop for mindfulness. It actually helps you do the mindfulness practice.
That's what the research suggests, yeah. It supports the practice. And when mindfulness is enhanced in this way, what benefits do we see?
Good question. What does the research say?
Research indicates that this combination mindfulness plus nature exposure leads to increased attentional capacity. Your ability to focus, to sustain your attention, actually improves.
That's huge in our distractible world.
Isn't it just? It also seems to support better emotional regulation, helping you manage your feelings, your reactions, maybe not getting so easily overwhelmed or triggered.
So more calm, more control.
And it fosters greater self-awareness, too, a deeper understanding of your own internal state, your thoughts, your feelings, and how you relate to the world around you.
So it's not just about relaxing passively. It's more like actively building up your cognitive and emotional muscles, building resilience.
Precisely. It's an active skill-building process. And this integration of mindfulness and nature is highlighted in the sources as a really promising approach, not just for treatment, but proactively for promoting overall well-being and even preventing mental health problems from developing in the first place.
Building those internal resources before things get tough.
Exactly. It's seen as a way to build capacity, not just fix problems after they arise.
Okay, so we've journeyed from that initial intuitive feeling of warmth and sun, through the science, the chemicals, the brain benefits, to these powerful personal stories like Trevor's, showing nature's healing power, especially when we add mindfulness. Which naturally brings us to the deeper question, doesn't it? Why? Why are we humans so responsive to nature? What is it about our relationship with the environment that shapes us so fundamentally?
Now we're getting into some really fascinating territory. the theories behind it all, like the biophilia hypothesis you mentioned earlier.
Biophilia. It sounds like love of life.
That's exactly what it means. The term was popularized by the biologist E.O. Wilson. And the biophilia hypothesis basically proposes that humans possess this innate, maybe even genetically hardwired preference or need to connect with nature and other forms of life.
So it's not just something we learn to like. It's deeper than that, part of who we are.
That's the idea. It's suggested to be a deep-seated part of our evolutionary heritage, forged over millions of years where human survival and development happened in natural environments, not separate from them.
So we're basically wired to need nature, because that's where we came from.
That's the core concept. And this hypothesis isn't just, philosophical pondering. Researchers are actively exploring how to translate this innate need into the places we actually live and work today. Which brings us to biophilic design.
Biophilic design.
Yeah.
So designing buildings and spaces to include nature.
Exactly. It's about consciously incorporating environmental features that resonate with those innate preferences we supposedly have.
What sort of features are we talking about?
Well, things like integrating indoor plants, maybe some water features like fountains or ponds, maximizing natural light and fresh air flow, using natural materials like wood and stone, incorporating natural shapes and patterns, and really prioritizing views of nature, trees, sky, water from inside buildings.
So making our indoor spaces feel a bit more like the outdoors we evolved in.
That's the goal. The idea is that by weaving these elements into our offices, schools, hospitals, homes, even our cities, we can tap into those deep-seated biophilic needs and actually improve the health and well-being of the people using those spaces.
So that office building with the big atrium full of plants and lots of natural light, it isn't just nicer to look at. It could be fundamentally better for the people working there psychologically.
Research strongly suggests so. Studies looking at biophilic design principles indicate that environments incorporating these elements can lead to measurable benefits. Reduced stress levels, improved mood, enhanced creativity, better cognitive function, even increased productivity and job satisfaction in workplaces.
Wow. So it moves from just being about aesthetics, about looking nice, to being a design philosophy grounded in human psychology and maybe even biology?
Precisely. It's designing for our innate needs.
And this whole idea, this focus on the human-nature connection, fits really well within a broader framework that some of the sources discussed, the environmental approach in psychology.
Yes, this is a really crucial perspective for understanding well-being. The environmental approach essentially views the interaction between a person and their environment as absolutely central.
And environment here means everything, right? Nature, buildings, social connections, culture.
All of it. It moves beyond looking only at what's going on inside someone's head, their individual psychology, to considering the whole dynamic system, the person within their environment.
It's acknowledging that we aren't just floating minds. We're constantly interacting with and being shaped by the world around us.
Exactly. And this field points out that modern life throws up some significant, what they call grand challenges regarding this interaction.
Like what?
Things like rapid urbanization, our increasing reliance on technology, and just a growing physical and maybe psychological distance from natural environments. We spend so much more time indoors now, often in highly controlled artificial spaces. We can lose touch with natural rhythms, natural elements.
So understanding this person-environment interaction isn't just academic curiosity. It's actually essential for tackling some of the well-being challenges we face today.
Absolutely. And a really key idea within the environmental approach is that this interaction isn't just one way. It's not just the environment acting on us.
It's bidirectional.
Profoundly bidirectional, yes. The environment influences us constantly through what we see, hear, feel, the resources it offers, the stressors it presents, the opportunities it provides. But we also actively influence and change our environment all the time.
We build cities, plant gardens,
choose where we live, renovate our homes, decorate our offices. Our actions shape the environment, and then that changed environment shapes us in return. It's a continuous loop.
That bidirectional idea feels really important. It means we're not just passive victims of our surroundings. We have some agency, some role to play.
Exactly. We're active participants. Now, the material briefly mentions different psychological models trying to explain how this dynamic interaction works.
Yeah, things like people choosing environments that fit them, or balancing personal resources with environmental demands.
Right, or looking at personal strengths versus environmental stressors, or seeing it as active engagement that builds flexibility. The details vary between models, but the core takeaway is consistent. Our relationship with our surroundings is an active, ongoing process. Both sides influence the other.
So if we pull all that together, So what? The bottom line is that even if we're still figuring out the exact brain pathways,
Right. The precise mechanisms are still being mapped.
the evidence strongly suggests that actively engaging with nature, or even just being exposed to it, helps us manage stress better and improves how our brains work.
Yes, that's a central finding connecting the science and the stories. Nature seems to have this restorative function for both our stress response systems and our ability to pay attention.
And there's also a perspective from eco-psychology about what happens when we lose that connection.
Yeah, eco-psychology suggests that this disconnection from nature, especially if it's driven by seeing the environment mainly as just stuff to be used, a resource for consumption.
Instead of a living system we're part of.
Exactly. That disconnection might actually contribute to psychopathology, to mental health problems. It suggests that ignoring our perhaps innate need for connection to the natural world comes at a psychological cost. It's a kind of alienation that affects our inner well-being.
But conversely, actively engaging with and caring for our environment. There was that term environmental personalization. That seems to build healthier mental structures.
That's a really interesting concept from the material, yes. The idea is that actively taking responsibility for and caring for your immediate environment. Maybe it's tending a small garden, joining a neighborhood cleanup, decorating your space with natural elements, even just nurturing your houseplants.
Simple things.
Simple things. It isn't just about making the outside look better. This act of environmental personalization is thought to foster a stronger sense of self, a stronger environmental identity, that feeling that you belong, you have a stake in your surroundings.
Okay.
And this in turn can improve your adaptive behaviors, how you cope with things, and strengthen your self-regulation skills. It's almost like the act of nurturing the world around you also nurtures and strengthens parts of yourself.
That creates a really positive loop, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interacting with nature helps heal and restore us, and actively caring for nature helps build a stronger, more resilient sense of self.
A virtuous cycle, exactly.
Okay, so we've explored the direct hit of sunshine and nature, the science and theories explaining why it affects us, the risks of disconnection. But let's be real. While sunshine and nature are clearly powerful, they aren't the only things that determine if we're happy, are they?
Oh, absolutely not. Not by a long shot. While they are definitely crucial pieces of the puzzle, happiness, overall life satisfaction, it's shaped by a much broader, much more complex interplay of factors. The research makes that very clear.
It's a bigger landscape.
A much bigger landscape, yes.
So let's zoom out a bit, widen the lens. What are some of the other key ingredients for a happy, fulfilling life that the sources highlighted? Social support came up a lot. That seemed huge.
Foundational, absolutely foundational. Having strong, meaningful connections, family, friends, community, it provides that vital sense of belonging, security, support. These are fundamental human needs, and the data points are quite striking. Well, for example, some research found that having 5 or more close friends could correlate with a significant happiness boost, something like 60% higher reported happiness compared to people with fewer friends.
60%, just from having a good group of friends.
It's significant. And then there's the marriage research. The quality of your relationship with your spouse, specifically the friendship element within that marriage, that apparently accounts for a massive 70% of marital satisfaction.
70%.
Yeah. If you marry your best friend, statistically, you are twice as happy, according to some studies.
Wow. Okay, those are not small numbers. It really underlines why investing time and effort in our relationships is so critical. It's not just a nice to have. It's core to our well-being.
Absolutely. And these strong social ties, they're also linked to things like greater job satisfaction, even better physical health, probably because they act as a buffer against stress.
A safety net.
A safety net and a source of joy. Okay, so relationships are key. What about income? Resources. The age-old question, can money buy happiness? Yes, that one. The research, as you might expect, presents a nuanced picture. It's definitely more complicated than a simple yes or no.
I bet.
Financial security, having enough money, clearly eases stress. It opens up opportunities. That contributes to well-being, no doubt. Now, studies looking at the link between income and happiness show different figures for where the benefit might plateau or level off.
Right, I've heard about that. Like after a certain amount, more money doesn't make you happier.
Some older studies suggested that maybe emotional well-being, how happy you feel day to day, might level off somewhere around, say, $60,000 or $70,000 a year. While overall life satisfaction, how you rate your life overall, might keep climbing up to maybe $95,000 or even $122,000.
Okay.
However, More recent research, quite large scale, actually suggests that for the majority of people, maybe around 80%, happiness continues to increase even with incomes going up to $500,000.
$500,000. So for most people, more money does seem to mean more happiness, at least up to pretty high levels, maybe just with diminishing returns at the very top.
That seems to be the current thinking for most people, yes. But, and this is a crucial but, the sources also make it crystal clear. Regardless of where any potential plateau is, having access to essential healthcare and basic resources, like enough food, these are absolute bedrock foundations for well-being.
Non-negotiables.
Absolutely. Lacking these necessities has a huge negative impact on mental health. Food insecurity, for example, is directly linked to a decline in mental well-being. Worrying about where your next meal comes from is incredibly stressful.
And that can trap people.
Right.
Affecting their ability to work, earn more, improve things.
Yeah.
Same with healthcare, I imagine. Losing health insurance was linked to a drop in life satisfaction.
Yes, a notable drop. It just highlights how fundamental these basic needs are. You need that floor of security to even begin building higher levels of well-being.
Makes sense. Okay, what else? Education came up as a factor linked to happiness.
It did. How does that work? Well, mainly through its connection to higher income potential. On average, people with more education tend to earn more, and as we just discussed, that often correlates with higher happiness.
So it's mostly an indirect effect through income.
That seems to be the primary driver. Though education also helps develop cognitive skills, problem-solving abilities, which can help you navigate life's challenges better, potentially supporting well-being that way too.
But there were potential downsides mentioned.
Yeah, the research notes possibilities like maybe developing unrealistic expectations about future earnings, or perhaps finding yourself in more stressful, demanding jobs, even with higher qualifications. So it's not a simple equation. It opens doors, builds skills, but it's not a guaranteed path and might come with its own pressures.
Right. Okay, let's shift to more internal factors. Things like our mindset. Optimism and gratitude were highlighted.
Yes, and these are incredibly powerful internal resources. Optimism, basically, maintaining a positive outlook, expecting good things to happen, acts as a really significant buffer against stress.
Like a shock absorber for life's bumps.
That's a good way to think of it. It helps us cope with adversity, builds resilience, and, not surprisingly, people who identify as more optimistic tend to report higher levels of happiness.
And the good news here is that optimism isn't necessarily something you're just born with or not. It can be learned, cultivated.
Absolutely. That's a key finding. The research points to techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, as being really effective for training our brains. Training them to challenge negative or unhelpful thought patterns and adopt more positive, constructive ways of thinking.
So you can actually practice being more optimistic.
You can. And interestingly, one study we looked at even found that therapy focused on these kinds of techniques was significantly more effective at increasing happiness than simply receiving a lump sum of money.
Wow. Therapy versus cash. And therapy wins for happiness. That really says something about the power of working on your internal landscape.
It really does. And gratitude works beautifully alongside optimism. Actively noticing, appreciating the good things in your life, no matter how small they seem, it demonstrably boosts well-being and life satisfaction.
Like that journaling study example.
Exactly. That was a perfect illustration. Simply making a consistent practice of writing down things they were grateful for led participants to feel more optimistic about the future, more satisfied with their lives right now, and they even reported fewer physical symptoms, fewer visits to the doctor.
That's incredible. Such a simple practice, like keeping a gratitude journal, have such wide-ranging effects.
It really is profound. Purpose and meaning also came through strongly as essential components of a happy life.
Having a why.
Exactly. Having a sense of direction, feeling like your life has meaning, contrasting to something larger than just yourself. These are deeply fulfilling human needs. The research links a strong sense of purpose to feelings of, well, fulfillment, joy, contentment, enthusiasm for life.
And there was that fascinating link to physical health, too, wasn't there? Something about comparing people focused on self-gratification versus purpose.
Yes, that was particularly striking. Research compared individuals whose focus was primarily on, say, personal pleasure and self-gratification, versus those focused more on contributing to others or a larger cause, essentially, living with a strong sense of purpose.
Yeah.
They found significant differences not just in reported happiness, but in actual biological markers of health.
Seriously, like what?
Those who felt a deeper sense of purpose, who were more oriented towards contribution, showed healthier biological profiles. Things like lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood and a stronger immune system response compared to the group focused mainly on personal pleasure.
That is wild. So living with purpose isn't just good for your soul. It might actually be good for your body at a cellular level.
The evidence points that way. It lends real scientific weight to the idea that giving, contributing, finding meaning beyond yourself can be profoundly beneficial, even physically.
A really compelling connection between mind, action, and body.
Okay, so beyond all these individual factors, relationships, mindset, the sources also reminded us that culture plays a big role, right? How we even define or pursue happiness isn't universal.
Absolutely. Our cultural values, the norms we grew up with, our collective history, it all shapes how we perceive happiness, what we value, how we go about trying to achieve it.
Like the difference between individualistic and collectivist cultures.
Exactly. The research touches on that. Societies that really emphasize personal freedom, individual achievement, sometimes linked to higher reported happiness, maybe due to that sense of self-determination. But there could be downsides too, like maybe more competition, potentially more social isolation.
Whereas collectivist cultures might emphasize group harmony more. Potentially, yes. There's this concept mentioned called universal relativism, which tries to capture this. It suggests that while there might be some universal determinants of happiness, things like relationships, basic security, health, seem important everywhere, how those are experienced, how much they're valued, how people pursue them, that's heavily mediated by cultural factors, history, traditions, even the geography and climate of a place.
So it's a mix. Universal human needs filtered through a specific cultural lens.
That's a good way to put it. And speaking of environment in that broader sense, the material also briefly touched on geographical psychology.
Right, how location itself matters.
Yeah, it's a fascinating field looking at how where you live relates to well-being. And that's influenced by lots of things. The social norms in that specific town or region, the environmental features available, like do you have easy access to green spaces?
Okay.
And even processes like selective migration, the idea that people might actually choose to move to places that better match their personality or lifestyle needs, which then reinforces the characteristics of that place. It just adds another layer, reinforcing that our environment is complex, natural, built, social, cultural, all interacting.
Wow. Okay, so we have taken quite a deep dive here. We started with that simple feeling, sunshine, nature. We explored the science, the why, with biophilia and environmental psychology, heard powerful stories, and then broadened right out to this rich landscape of other factors, relationships, money, mindset, purpose, culture, even where we live. So what does this all mean for us, for someone listening right now? How do we take all these insights and actually, cultivate our own sunshine, nurture our well-being in our everyday lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the most exciting part, I think, because the sources really do offer a wealth of insights that we can translate into practical, actionable steps, things we can do regardless of the climate we live in or what our immediate surroundings look like.
Okay, where do we start? That direct nature connection seems like a big one, especially thinking back to Trevor's story.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be complicated. Make a conscious effort, even a small one, to spend time outdoors. Remember Trevor's starting point, just 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Or aim for that 30 minutes in pleasant conditions, like the Michigan study found. If getting outside feels like a huge hurdle, start really small. Just open the door, step outside, feel the air, look at the sky. That counts. It matters.
And when you are outside, try to really be there.
Yeah.
Engage the senses, that mindfulness piece.
Exactly. Don't just walk through the park while scrolling on your phone or lost in thought. Try to be in it. What do you actually see? Notice the details. What sounds can you hear? Birds, traffic, wind, what can you smell? How does the air feel on your skin? That conscious engagement really amplifies the benefits.
What if getting outside is genuinely difficult? Maybe mobility issues or unsafe neighborhood or just terrible weather.
Great point. That's where bringing nature indoors comes in. Remember the biophilia discussion. Even just having indoor plants has been shown to help with things like attention and stress reduction.
So get some houseplants.
Yeah. Integrate nature into your personal space however you can. Houseplants, maybe some natural materials like wood or stone in your decor, even just positioning your desk or chair so you have a view of a tree or the sky if possible. Every little bit helps.
And those concepts of ecotherapy and environmental personalization, how do we apply those?
Well, even if you don't have access to a formal ecotherapy program, you can replicate the idea. Engage in activities that connect you to nature. gardening, even on a windowsill, walking in a local park, bird watching, or simply sitting quietly and mindfully in whatever green space you can access. And environmental personalization, take active care of your immediate environment.
Like tending those houseplants.
Exactly. Or keeping your workspace tidy and pleasant, maybe adding a picture of a favorite natural scene, creating a connection to your space, taking responsibility for it. These actions seem to strengthen our sense of self and well-being. They counteract that modern disconnection.
Okay, so actively weaving nature back into our lives, inside and out. What about drawing on those broader happiness factors we discussed? How do we make those actionable?
We can definitely frame those as practical habits, too. Relationships, for instance. Given that data, nurturing connections has to be high on the list.
So making time for people.
Definitely. Make dedicated time for the people you care about. Don't just rely on bumping into them. Schedule it in. And express appreciation. Tell people what they mean to you. If your social circle feels a bit small, maybe actively look for ways to build new connections. Join a club, take a class, volunteer for something you believe in, prioritize connection.
Okay. And gratitude. Seems simple but powerful.
Super simple, super powerful. Make it a habit. Maybe take 1 minute each evening to think of 3 things you were grateful for that day. Or keep a little journal by your bed, like in the study. The key is consistency. Making it a regular practice retrains your brain to notice the good.
Mindfulness too.
Yes, engage in mindfulness in whatever form works for you. Maybe it's using a guided meditation app for 10 minutes. Maybe it's just taking 3 deep conscious breaths when you feel stressed. Or maybe it's bringing more attention to routine things, really tasting your food, feeling the water in the shower. Just cultivating that present moment awareness. It builds calm and resilience.
And physical health, diet, exercise, sleep, foundational.
Absolutely foundational for both body and mind, and often, as we've seen, easier or more enjoyable to do when we combine it with the outdoors or nature. A walk in the park is exercise and nature connection.
2 birds with 1 stone. What about passions and goals?
Explore your passions. Find activities that you enjoy just for the sake of doing them, things that get you into that state of flow, and set meaningful goals that don't have to be huge. Having something to work towards, whether personal or professional, gives direction and a sense of accomplishment. That fuels fulfillment.
And actively work on optimism. Challenge negative thoughts.
Yes. Become aware of those automatic negative thoughts and consciously challenge them. Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is it helpful? Remember, CBT techniques work. How you think literally changes how you feel. And don't hesitate to seek help. Therapy or coaching can be incredibly effective tools for building this mental resilience.
Finally, purpose and meaning.
Find your why. What gives your life meaning? It could be your work, your family, your hobbies, creative expression, spiritual beliefs if they resonate. Look for ways to contribute to others or a cause bigger than yourself. Remember that surprising link between contributing to others and your own physical health. It's powerful stuff.
So it really is a holistic picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Combining these external things like connecting with nature with internal shifts in mindset and nurturing those fundamental human needs for connection and purpose. It's not just one thing.
Not at all. It's weaving together multiple threads. This deep dive really reinforces that happiness isn't some simple equation, like sunshine, happy. Nor is it a fixed destination you arrive at.
It's more like a process. A journey.
Exactly. It's dynamic. It's influenced by this intricate web of factors. Our environment, yes, but also our relationships, our thoughts, our actions. And crucially, it's not solely dependent on external circumstances like living in the perfect climate. We have more influence than we might think.
That feels like the really empowering takeaway. While that lovely feeling of sun on your skin is real and good for you, our capacity for happiness, for well-being is much more robust. It's something we can actively cultivate.
We can. And nature offers this incredibly powerful, accessible, scientifically backed resource to help us on that journey. It's available to us in some form almost everywhere.
A gift, really.
It really is. A reminder that even small, consistent interactions with the natural world can bring significant benefits, mental, emotional, even physical. It's a connection that seems to run incredibly deep in who we are.
So as we wrap up, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. In this busy, often indoor, often online world, where can you find just a moment this week to reconnect with that simple, profound power of the natural world?
What small step could you take?
Right where you are. How could you invite a little more sunshine or nature into your life, whether that's literally stepping outside, really looking out the window, or maybe just watering a plant with intention?
Remember Trevor's 5 minutes. Remember mindfulness in the park. Remember, adding some green to your desk, it all counts. It all adds up.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. We hope it gave you some food for thought. We encourage you to reflect on what resonated, explore your own connection to nature, and consider all the factors influencing your own happiness journey. We'll see you on the next exploration.